A self-confessed mess. That was Luke Lezon after dealing with a mysterious illness that left him depressed and emaciated. But out of his mess, God made a miracle. Take a look.
Waiting on God and that you're waiting for him to...
At age 24, Pastor Luke Lezon had a mental and emotional breakdown after suffering for months with a mysterious illness.
I just felt like, God, you're gliding along with not a care in the world, and I'm over here breaking.
Quickly losing weight from nausea and dysentery, Luke became bedridden. His frustration escalated to blackouts, fear, and rage.
I'm angry with God. I'm saying, God, where is the glory in this?
In his book, Your Mess Matters, Luke explains how God changed his perspective on pain and suffering.
Please welcome to the 700 Club, Luke Lezon. Luke, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah.
I want to mention your book, first of all, because everything we're talking about, I've read about in your story here, Your Mess Matters. When did you first begin to realize that maybe you had a problem? It wasn't just yesterday's pizza or something.
Right. I had actually been preaching at an event, and my wife was there with me, and she, sees me every day, but someone had taken a photo with me after the event, and she said, something does not look right. You're looking a little thin. And she had me step on a scale, and sure enough, I was like 18 pounds down from what I normally.
18 pounds?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
At 24, you were really virtually still a newlywed in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you start having all of these health issues, and what did doctors tell you?
They couldn't figure it out. All they knew is that my white blood cell count was high and that I was losing weight, and anyone in any kind of medical profession would realize that's a bad combination. So they couldn't rule out cancer, couldn't rule out anything like that. They were doing tons of different procedures on me, just exploratory, trying to figure out what was wrong, and they didn't know. And so, yeah.
So you're in ministry. I mean, here you are, you're out there, doing what God has called you to do. You're young. I'm sure you felt vibrant and healthy before all of this began to happen. It must have been very confusing to you spiritually.
Yeah, I had a ton of questions. And at that point, it was very weird to be a pastor and feel like I help people get through these things. Yes. I'm actually having to go through these things very early in my life as well. And so we had a lot of moments a lot of Jacob moments where I felt like I was wrestling with God, and he was going to have to touch my hip a few times. That.
Your wife was the champ through this because you were both young and you hadn't been married very long. How did she deal with it?
She was the most stable person. I've heard that I can be stubborn and a little up and down, which I'm sure there's not tons of truth to that. But she was so consistently praying and for me, even when I was very down. She was a rock for us. She was an anchor, and it was incredible.
Well, after months, all of this really took its toll. How bad did it get?
I ended up losing almost 50 pounds at one point, and I started to just look like a skeleton in a lot of different ways. And so we got to a point where my dad had to carry me into the hospital at one point. My electrolytes were so low that they were wondering if I was going to have a heart attack. It was truly a mess of a situation.
Wow. In the middle of this, I'm sure when doctors who are the learned, educated ones who are supposed to have answers to this couldn't find answers, you really not only got frustrated, but you got angry, and angry with God. And that's so normal, but it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you went through.
It was extremely uncomfortable, and I had to get to a point where I was like, you know what? In Scripture, it says that God's not the God of confusion, but he's the God of peace. And so I started to realize, you know what? The antidote to my confusion isn't clarity on where God's taking me. It's the peace of knowing that God is with me. And so I had to really get to a point where I trusted God in the middle of whatever it is that I was going through. And I just felt like God was speaking to me in that moment. I'm going to use this moment of your confusion. I'm going to be the peace for you in the middle of this so that you can talk about the peace that I bring others for the rest of your life through your ministry. And that's what I believe he's going to do.
Did you think you might die, or did you think it was just chronic and would eventually go away?
We did think that there was something potentially seriously wrong. When they couldn't rule out cancer, we had many moments where we were all very concerned. On the surface, my parents, my wife, my support network, they were all acting very strong for me. But as things started to get better and they started to rule different things out like cancer, they had moments where they were breaking down too. And I realized, wow, we've all been very terrified in the midst of this. But God's been good the whole way through.
And your brother said something to you in the process of all of this that I think was really a simple but powerful statement. Talk about that.
Yeah, he just approached me in the middle of a mental breakdown of mine, and he said, "Hey, like God's not abandoning you in the middle of this mess at all." And I had no idea how profound that statement would be at the time, and that God would turn it into what it's become. But it really takes, sometimes you need clarity from other people, you know, to...
Well, and he said there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes just accepting that nugget for the moment brings you to a reliance on God that maybe was a struggle before that.
Yeah.
So what did you finally get diagnosed with?
So I ended up having a parasite, and that's why the white blood cell count was high.
Wow.
That's why they struggled to figure everything out there. But
and then that turned into something else because it disappeared, but your body was already so diminished.
Yes, then I had multiple infections in my body after that through, thank God, multiple procedures and different things, infectious disease doctors were able to heal me. And honestly, it was more of a mental hurdle after that than anything else to be able to get back to a standpoint where I felt clear again in our vision for our church, my marriage, and just what God wanted to do with the rest of our lives in ministry.
So the title, Your Mess Matters, what do you want the takeaway to be for people?
I just want people, if I could summarize the book in one sentence, I'd say, you know what? God doesn't work around the messes in your life. He works in the messes in your life. And I would just challenge people, really allow God to do work in that soil, because messes are miracle-making fertilizer if you'll allow him to work in it.
Mm-hmm. And I no doubt your eating habits and your exercise habits now become not just something you have to do, but something you want to do.
Yeah, I started to take my health a lot more seriously at that point. And, you know, it's also something where my wife's on me a little bit to make sure that I'm doing those things, because she doesn't want to have to be that rock constantly.
Yes.
And so it's definitely changed our lives for the better.
Well, we all have messes in our lives, and the message is such a good one. Your mess matters because God's going to use it. He's going to use it in a powerful way. Luke's book is available wherever books are sold. Luke, thank you so much for being with us. It's a great message. Everybody has things they have to deal with, and God, if we give them to him, uses them for our good.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Great to have you here.